Welcome to the Knife Junkie podcast, your weekly dose of knife news and information about knives and knife collecting. Here's your host, Bob the Knife Junkie DeMarco.
Welcome to the Knife Junkie podcast. I'm Bob DeMarco. On this edition of the show, I welcome back Michael Jarvis of Auxiliary Manufacturing. Michael has always had a career centered around knives, first as a user in professional kitchens, then as a maker in his own custom knife shop. He's known for his award-winning EDC and self-defense fixed blades, though unsurprisingly, he cut his teeth making culinary knives. His auxiliary manufacturing is introducing a new product line of knives based on a very successful pocket fixed blade he dropped this time last year in 2023. We'll catch up with Mike and find out all about this exciting new direction. But first, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and download the show to your favorite podcast app. That way you get to listen on the go. And if you'd like to help support the show, you can do so by heading on over to Patreon and checking out what we have to offer there. You can scan the QR code you see on your screen or go to TheKnifeJunkie.com/Patreon. Again, that's TheKnifeJunkie.com/Patreon. Michael, welcome back to the show. It's good to see you, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. So I hinted at it. I hinted at what the knife was that you're basing this new line on, but I'm just going to come right out and show the people because they've seen this quite a bit. This is your pocket Bowie that came out last Thanksgiving. I remember I was overseas on a rare trip to Germany with the family when you emailed me, do you want to check this out? And of course, I hadn't been checking my emails and such. And when I did, I was like, oh my God, I hope I didn't miss out. I love this thing. So tell us about what's happening. What's new?
Well, really what's happening is the Pocket Boy went so well. The coffin handle was super popular. Everybody loved it. So I decided to expand on that with some new blade shapes. And the Pocket Boy XL, which is probably one of my favorites from the job. I really took this thing, really stretched it out, extra inch on both ends. This is very nice, very mean. And I definitely kind of went with a Persian vibe on this guy. I'm sure you guys can pick that up. Really excited about it. But, you know, we could talk about the XL all day, but I do have to talk about a million other things, of course. And I'll start showing off blade shapes, you know, whenever you let me. But we can kind of trickle them in also. You know, we can't get too far ahead of ourselves, I don't think.
Well, yeah, but don't you worry your pretty little head about it. I'll take care of the pacing. Let's just talk about these coffin handle knives because I agree. I mean, I agree with everyone else. It feels so good in hand. And when I got this last year, I was very, very hot into Pikal style knives, and I still love them. But it was just my jam at the time. And something I loved about this coffin shaped handle immediately is how perfectly versatile it is in all grips, whether forward, reverse, whether edge in, edge out, even sideways like this. If you happen to grab it funky, it feels really, really good. What inspired the coffin shaped handle, and what have you been hearing from others?
I mean, the coffin shaped handle on the Pocket Boy was certainly, you know, inspired by the old school Bowies with their traditional coffin shapes. And just like a lot of my designs, I always try to kind of add something modern onto a very classic design, and of course put my twist on it, which is generally a wrap or a textured handle. And you know, in terms of these little coffin handles, you know, I will say it kind of got lucky just fitting into a perfect 3-finger grip here and just locking right into the palm. It certainly took a little bit of skill to get there, but I lucked out with having to refine the design such a small amount. And I think maybe made 2 prototypes and it was ready. I was so happy.
That's all creative types, for all creative types, lightning strikes every once in a while. Sometimes you got to work real hard and slog through, and there's no guarantee that slog will result in anything that people want. But it's amazing when lightning strikes and you get something that just works. And I personally, as a fan of Bowie knives, think that jumping off with something classic is, it's a great way to go.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, man. It's well, plus, everybody loves a Bowie knife. I've never met a single person who's like, oh, I just hate that. There's some people who hate Tontos and Warncliffs and everything else. I've yet to meet a person, at least an American, that's just like, oh, I hate Bowies. We might have to boot them out of the country if that were the case.
Now, I've met a few people. I can think of one in particular who's very picky about the Bowies he will accept, but that's about as far as as I've heard anyone go. Trash talking the Bowie knife. But so you do in this case and in the drop we're about to talk about a number of different handle treatments, and this was a beefy boy. This first drop. Tell us about some of the things that are staying the same, and then some of the things that are changing on this new drop.
Well, a lot of you guys probably knew what happened last year and saw last year's drop. It was pretty popular, and it went really good. And so things that are the same for all the new blade shapes, same 3/16 steel, nice thick piece of steel, same textured handles, same wrapped options as well. But for the G10 this year, it will be black only. It was a little too difficult to try to wrangle in all the colors and all the blade shapes at the same time. But other exciting things will also be the Pocket Bowie Slim. A lot of you guys asked about a thinner version. I went ahead and put together a batch with 1/8" steel. They are super slicey comparatively. Going to be really nice for those guys who like a thinner blade overall, like to be slicing, like to have a little more delicate of a tip. Certainly be mindful of, your more delicate tip, but it's going to be a great cutter.
Hold them up next to each other so we can get a sort of relative idea.
Of course. And, this might seem more drastic to me than it might to you, but this here is almost double this here,
Yeah.
A 1/4 inch would be double this. And this is not too far behind that 0.187, 0.125. It might not seem like a lot, but in geometry, with the exact same height grind on this thinner steel as on the other Pocket Bowie, you're really going to see improved cutting performance. It's really going to be a really, really nice cutting knife.
From a maker's perspective, what's it been like going from well, I mean, I have several of your other knives, and you've used obvious different widths of steel, but what's it like going from something like the Pocket Bowie and then grinding it a certain way and making a good number of them, and then switching it to the thinner, almost by half thinner steel?
I have to completely change the process for it. So with the standard Pocket Bowie that you're holding and, the spear point, the leaf blade and everything else, even on this 1/8 inch, I do all the grinds the same height. Excuse me. But with this thinner steel and with this thicker steel, the big difference is that I can almost completely grind the thicker steel pre-heat treat. So I'm grinding soft steel. It's much, much easier to work with, much more malleable. And this thinner steel, I risk warping if I grind it before heat treatment. So I grind it completely after heat treat. The same with my pocket rocket or bottle rocket that you're holding there in the 1/8 inch steel. Anything that's in a thinner steel, I do all the grinding once it's hard. So it is, in a sense, a lot more work, even though it's a lot less grinding.
Right. And I would imagine it's less forgiving. It's thinner. It's less forgiving, not only in the heat treat, but also in the grinding process. But I mean, it's pretty obvious looking at the grinds on all of your knives. I'm a huge fan. This is still one of my favorite knives of all time. That you are pretty adept at the grinding part. So I'm sure going to the thinner steel isn't a big deal, but it seems like it from my perspective, like, there's going to be some sort of a learning curve doing that same grind and trying to get the same height of the grind, but going to the thinner steel.
Absolutely. In my opinion, the thinner the steel and the higher the grind, it becomes more and more difficult to keep a nice bevel line.
Okay.
So, as we look at like my Runt XL model, which is 3/32 steel, super thin, the same thickness I would use for a kitchen knife. And that has a very high, almost full height grind. And I want to say almost an inch tall. It is really, really difficult to keep those bevels nice and straight and even and everything else on something so thin like that versus that Pocket Bowie where the angle is much more steep or less steep, it's much easier to grind, in my opinion, on the thicker steels. A lot more forgiving. But with my restaurant background, I'm a sucker for a thin piece of steel. You know, you can't beat it.
Yeah. So before we get to the other blade shapes, which we're about to talk about, and the XL, because I want to talk about the XL. Maybe this is a good time to mention that because there are a variety of other blades in the coffin series. But how did you arrive at this shape for the Bowie? You've got a little bit of a recurve just towards the ricasso, but it's all usable edge here. So it's definitely a recurve, and you got a nice belly. You've got a very long swedge. And how did you come up with this in particular?
Truthfully, the first one was much more like this, with a slight, kind of clip, and it was a lot different. It really didn't have this kind of built-in guard, which does give that little recurve bit. And again, I wasn't feeling it. It wasn't performing well. The first one doesn't even exist anymore. I tried to regrind it and totally screwed it up. It lives in a scrap bin. But working through the design, I'm not much of a paper artist. So I work way more on steel, and I just kind of plugged away at the knife, and I kind of built the handle much blockier than this and just ground away at the whole thing after the handle was really attached, till I finally got to a point where I was happy, and then started kind of shaping out the blade. And it was a really, I don't even want to say labor intensive. It was mentally challenging, just to, tweak little by little, see what I like, see what I don't like. And like I said, I kind of got lucky on this one, from a design aspect, without having to do too much. It kind of just fell into place, looking at old designs and kind of mashing some of my current designs and styles up. And you'll certainly see remnants and lines that follow some of my other models. And one really important thing that is cohesive in all my designs is I try really hard and force myself to work within the parameters of my tooling. So if I can grind these angles, and I can do this kind of grind, and I have a wheel that fits this, and I have a wheel that fits this. So these are the kind of ways I'm going to try to work it to keep my life as easy as possible.
Right.
So not only does my creativity go into it, but my restrictions certainly help to play a part in the design as well.
Yeah.
It's running a business. I can't be hand filing and spending 40 hours to make one single knife while I'm trying to, feed my family and pay a mortgage and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's sort of like the necessity is the mother of invention kind of thing. Or also, I work in a creative field too, and when a lot of restrictions are put on something, it's almost like, okay, I can breathe a sigh of relief and work within these parameters, because if everything is wide open to you all the time, man, you could do everything and nothing.
And what a perfect example of that is when I was taking custom orders. I found it so funny. If I gave everybody just unlimited options, just they could choose anything in the world, they could never choose. I found it much, much easier, and they ended up being much happier in the end when I could be like, okay, do you want wood? Do you want this? Do you want this? What do you like? All right, here's 4 options. Here's 3 options. Let's work with these things and make something you'll like. And we can really trim down the process from weeks of going back and forth and, trying to figure out the right material, to being like, okay, here's what I'm willing to use. Here's what you like. Here's where that cross section meets.
Yeah.
Let's figure that out.
Yeah. The Venn diagram of custom knife making.
Exactly.
Oh, no,
kind of a nightmare at times.
Oh God, I bet. Yeah. I mean, and because we all know that knife collectors such as myself are finicky. We have our tastes and we have our dreams. Oh my God, wouldn't it be cool to see this in blah blah blah. But one last thing about the shape of the pocket Bowie, because we haven't talked too much about it, you and I, about this knife in particular, is it's a thin line between Bowie and Persian. I say that often because there are certain makers and designers who kind of flirt with both, and sometimes you could call it one or the other. And what I like about this is the dramatic swedge, which kind of signals Persian a little bit, but you've kept the point center line. So it's very, it's ideal for utility cutting, the kind of stuff we're actually using these knives for. And also if you do have to, heaven forbid, ever use it as a self-defense knife and you need to want to turn it around or something like that, the point is in a predictable spot. It's not out here somewhere like a Persian would be. So yeah, it's just a comment. I think it's a thin line between those two blades, and I think you balance it nicely here with that dramatic kind of upsweep, but it's not putting the point up in the sky somewhere, you know.
Actually, and I have a couple comments to make about that. You know, I'll drone on forever about things, but one really important thing about the swedge, and maybe not so important on this one, but on yours, the swedge is way more functional than on a lot of other knives that I make and probably out there. Because on a knife that thickness that you have, that 3/16, and you'll kind of see it on this guy here, better example, because it has this really thick kind of kickstop almost.
Yeah.
How I did that. So what you'll find on that pocket Bowie is if we have this nice swedge, say we didn't have it, it would have a really big, thick shoulder right here. So if you're cutting inward, you're going to kind of hit that big, thick shoulder and face resistance. And you will certainly, you know, I can't even hide the fact that that will happen on this knife. Certainly would not recommend this so much for self-defense, but if you need it, it's there. But this is kind of a good example between the two. You know, you will meet resistance right here.
Yeah.
And also kind of right here with a thinner swedge. And if there was no swedge at all, you would certainly meet it even more as you move forward. Now, touching on the centerline tip thing, you'll see that across the board on all my knives, my Picals, my Karambits. I will always make sure, you know, this is probably the farthest from centerline that I'll get on this Pocket Bowie XL, because I did want to keep it a little more upswept following this nice curve, which follows a 12-inch wheel pretty nicely. All my other designs, my Sume, my Karambit, everything always keeps a nice centerline tip, just so if you ever have to stab, you do have a very predictable, you know, you're never going to be just stuck swiping or striking in one direction. You're always going to have a nice thrust option, because that is going to be the most simple, you know, self-defense technique for anybody to use, whether that's my wife, your wife, me, you, some guy who's super well trained. You know, when you're in the heat of the moment, the easiest thing is always going to be to go like this,
right.
You know, when fight or flight's taking over. So keeping that nice and center line is always important in all of my designs. And you'll see that on everything I do. There's always going to be that option.
All right, well, let's catalog the new blade shapes that are coming out on your Coffin. I mean, that's the official line name, right? The Coffin
Series. Yeah, I was hoping that
series.
You would have your package of it. You could be wearing your Coffin Series t-shirt right now, but you'll have to do it tomorrow. It's okay.
I can't wait. Okay, so let's see these new blades.
Okay, so I will show off the blades. We'll talk a little bit about them, of course. I'm sure you'll have some stuff you want to say. We'll start with my favorite. I really, really love the XL. It's beefy, it's big. This is not, you know, going to be a nice concealable in-pocket knife like the smaller EDC versions, but I got, you know, a lot of requests. It fills the hand, full 4-finger knife, really, really nice. Same thickness overall, 3/16 steel, same nice texture, bead blast, the whole works. You'll see, I don't know how good I can get this to focus, but really took away all the hot spots on this guy. I mean, everything's got a nice curved bevel all the way around, except for the one place you want it to be sharp, of course, right on the edge there.
Nice. So you're talking about, for people who are just listening, you're talking about the very, very nice chamfering on all of the 90-degree edges and
yes. I mean, everywhere. I don't remember who told me, but man, one time I saw a video on Instagram. It must have been 9 years ago. And it was just some old timer saying the only sharp part in your knife should be the edge. Soften all your corners. And blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, well, this guy seems to know what he's talking about. And, you know, it shows who pays attention to the details of making their knives. You know, there's bushcraft knives. Sure, you want a 90-degree spine. That's great. I mean, and even with a slightly chamfered spine, you should have no problem striking a thrower rod. In my opinion, I personally don't. If you do, consider getting stronger. Otherwise, you should be grateful that your knife maker friends are making it so every way you're touching your knife, you are never going to feel any sort of hot spot, any pain. It makes using a knife for a very long time much, much, much more enjoyable. You're going to reduce your calluses over time. It makes a big difference in the quality and the feel of any knife, in my opinion.
Before we go any further, I used to, a long time ago, used to kind of quip when I would hear people talk about, oh, it's uncomfortable in the hand. I'd be like, well, this is a knife. Aren't we supposed to be like knife guys? Isn't this supposed to be? And then where it really came into relief for me is watching, say, Forged in Fire, where they're swinging these swords and meeting massive resistance. And after doing a lot of that myself, realizing, well, if I can't hold the damn thing, what use is it to me? This whole idea about you shouldn't complain about a knife. We're not cream puffs. This is knives we're talking about. But yeah, it should be totally comfortable and a joy to use for longer than, cutting the thread off of your collar, which, being realistic, was about as far as my knife usage went to that point, So
absolutely. First and foremost, I am happy to sell knives to cream puffs and tough guys alike. I do not discriminate. Everybody is welcome to use auxiliary manufacturing knives. I'm somewhere in between there. I'm really not either of those things, but I have my moments on both sides.
Yeah. Yeah. I would place myself in the same spot, sir. So
Exactly.
We're in good company. All right, let's see the other blades that are going on the smaller models here.
Of course. And I'll go with one of my personal favorites. We'll talk the Spear first. I really like the Spear. You may recognize it as an exact ripoff of the Carl Jr. blade, because that's exactly what it is. Same shape, same size, same everything. Just super handy. It's often equated to sort of a Kiridashi kind of shape. This kind of knocks that Kiridashi shape a little bit off kilter, in my opinion, but still a crazy, in my opinion, probably the most practical of all of the new blade shapes. Because you're going to get a nice everyday cutter. You're going to get a nice fine point blade. It's going to slice well. You get some nice rock texture on the top for some indexing and a little bit of visual texture as well. I think if you're kind of torn and you just want a great everyday, all day user knife, this is an excellent, solid option. Kind of middle of the road across the board.
I love the you call it rock texturing. I was thinking, as I was looking at that, I jotted down file work. It looks like old-fashioned jimping or old-fashioned file work, or just hand file work. I love the way that looks. Can you hold that up a little closer to the camera so we can see the spine of that?
Absolutely. I'll do my best to really get it in there for you.
Oh yeah, okay, I see. It's sort of irregular, almost like the it's like regular irregular, like the patterning that you carve into the G10 of the handles.
It's the same thing. I do it on the exact same tool. It's no different than that. And for this, otherwise, if I did not do this, and you'll see this on my Caro models and a couple other things I do as well, it's kind of common on my stuff. Otherwise, it would just be a flat plane with a little bit of chamfering. I just think I could add a little bit more visual texture. And another nice feature of this, though, is if you are indexing the knife, what you'll know when you get past that and you can't go farther. So if you're doing some nice detail work, you want your finger really close as you're carving or digging something out. Sorry, guys, I don't know my directions here. You'll always know when you can't go any farther. So it is kind of a multi-purpose.
All right. So what else? You had a Warncliffe that you were showing, and it's kind of similar, but quite different.
It is kind of similar, but quite different. And please note, I am showing them back and forth kind of in the wrapped version with genuine stingray skin. And all the cord wraps are fully impregnated with marine grade resin, rock solid, never going anywhere, on there for life. Waterproof, excellent all around knives. But Warncliffe, similar, but different. It's pretty much the same shape overall. Nice swedge on there, but nice straight edge. I think this is going to be a great working knife overall.
I like that it had, well, a couple of things. First of all, I see what you mean. The spear point is more of a Kiridashi because it's got that upward sloping blade edge. And this one, the Warncliffe, has the flat edge kind of not parallel. Yeah, it was sort of parallel to the in the same line as the bottom part of the handle. So the point is in a different spot.
Absolutely. I had one of my buddies tell me that it reminded him of a Cybertruck, and I was a little embarrassed of that.
Well, it's got a sort of relief bevel at the very tip, not bevel, but
it's got a nice little Oh, so one thing I did do, yes, I did put a nice, I'm trying to get this figured out. I'm stuck at this. But yeah, I got a nice deep swedge on there. But one thing I did do, and I'm still trying to figure this out, you'll notice there's no grind on the front. Hopefully you can see that. So it does come to its full thickness at the tip there, just because if I did run this swedge all the way down, you see it kind of tapers and stops right there. We could have kept it coming all the way down and turned it and kind of ground on this, but it would leave a really, really thin tip. And that would certainly take away from me boasting about this being a great work knife, because you can't have a great work knife with a super thin tip. It will just, it will go awry on you, I promise.
Yeah, yeah. And then you have the leaf shape.
The leaf shape is one of my favorites as well. I think it's actually really elegant personally.
Yeah.
Really, really nice. Just kind of sweeping edge on there. Nice belly that kind of mimics that pocket Bowie, but a lot less aggressive than the pocket Bowie.
So what do you
certainly
see?
Does. Oh, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was going to say, what do you see? You were talking the other two as being great work knives. This also seems like a great work knife, but maybe for different kind of work. This one seems pretty robust, maybe outdoorsy.
I think this is certainly a great outdoorsy knife. And I think it's going to be for people who want something that kind of looks a little less scary, you know? All of these knives, they're very pointy, they're very stabby. You know, you can pull this out and be like, oh, show me, cutting my rope, do whatever. You know, no one's going to be particularly alarmed by a big, large, rounded blade. You know, I find that stabby knives are much more scary to people. I should have, you know, when there's colors of the knives, they'll be a lot less scary, even more so. But I do think, you know, this is an excellent work knife. I sent a couple out. My buddy Matt Helm Knives, excellent knife designer.
Yeah.
Absolutely fell in love with this. And it then kind of came about that is very similar to his dog bone model that he does with Dauntless. Very similar overall. Really cool shape. I think I was probably partially inspired by that because I'm just a big fan of his and Dauntless and the stuff that they make. And you know, I can't help but be inspired by the things I see and enjoy. And hopefully they feel honored that I took some inspiration away from theirs.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, okay. So you've got the three different new blade shapes plus the Bowie shape. And then you have the two different handle treatments. You mentioned briefly the wrapping and the genuine ray skin underneath. Also, you mentioned how you're going only black with the handles. I gotta say, I'm liking the look of these. I mean, I love that. I love the colorfulness of this. I also have the broadhead. Is that what you call this?
That is the broadhead. Yeah.
The broadhead with this crazy cool,
super bright. Yeah. I think that was like a camo G10 or a forged G10 or something.
I love the looks of these, but something about the all black. I mean, and just to accentuate that, you've been doing like some really killer photography of this new line. I think you are really good at rolling stuff out. Like this coffin drop seems to be a really well conceived and controlled release in a way. It seems like everything's in place, including this really, really great photography that you're featuring. Tell us about that. I mean, this is like a rollout from a bigger company. I mean,
there is a secret to my success. And I will say I do have some of the skills to pay the bills, but teamwork does make the dream work. And I am certainly not doing any of this by myself. All the photography is being done by Swedge Media, really good friends of mine. Look up these dudes if you have not already. If you are a maker and you want to step your game up, check out Swedge Media. They have tons of experience. They not only work with me, Doughboy Blades. They've done work with Benchmade, Reef Knives. They both were employed by Blade HQ previously. They have a ton of experience and are offering some really great options for smaller companies like me to do just like you said and make things appear very professional. Again, I am just me making the knives. I got my wife Ann doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes and coming into the shop to help as I need it. And I got Swedge Media on the team helping do things. And, you know, I got some influencers like you and a few other great people helping me out. But I certainly could not be rolling out this drop the way I am without the help of everybody. It would be so much more difficult to do single-handedly. I can't dedicate myself to making the knives and to learn how to take a picture, unfortunately.
Right, and marketing and all that, but it seems to be it seems to really come together. You mentioned Swedge Media, and first of all, I love the name. You know
Yeah,
exactly what you're getting with a name like that. But
exactly.
they okay, one of everyone's favorite knife photographers, and there are some very talented knife photographers. You see them set up shop at Blade Show. It's impressive.
Of course,
But we all know Sharp by Coop, and
of course.
he does beautiful, excellent work. But it's different. It's different. And this is, he's a great guy and his work is fantastic. To me, that's like museum archiving. Like, I want to archive this
Absolutely.
knife I've made. And, uh, the way Swedge Media and Auxiliary Manufacturing has come together has a much more like a campaign. The artwork is much more like, I've seen a number of different versions of the pictures, and I don't know, just seems like a real campaign, and I'm impressed by it.
Swedge Media is for the next generation. Sharp by Coop and everybody else that does the photos at Blade Show, they're amazing. They're incredible photographers, and they're catering to the audience they've been catering to for a very long time. But there's so many new knife makers that are looking for some help, and guys like this don't really, guys like Swedge, they didn't really exist previously. Nobody was offering what they're offering, and by the way, they are having a Black Friday sale for makers. You want to give them a try, this is a great chance. I get nothing off plugging them. They are just my friends, and I greatly appreciate their help. I want to see them thrive in the knife world, of course. But yeah, they have not only a style all their own, but an approach all their own. They really know what they're doing, and they will work with you to present your work in kind of a meld of your brands. That really is just striking. Their photography, it's striking to say the least. It really grabs attention. And even in a world where I'm sadly heavily shadow banned on Instagram, like you probably are, and a lot of our knife friends are, their posts help me to perform exceedingly well. It is refreshing to see, and it shows me that it's worth every penny that I've ever paid for their help.
Well, so this all started, or the reason I brought this up was the black on black. Like, they made it a very exciting look, the way they have
Yes.
captured it, and the backgrounds and the way they have photographed it. But just seeing it in your hand, unvarnished, by awesome photography, they still are striking. I think that I think it's a beautiful look. I'm particularly fond of the wraps. I love cord wraps. I don't have any of your cord wraps yet, but
yeah, tomorrow, I think, right?
yeah, I believe it's tomorrow
that's
as we record this. So,
and I do have one other blade shape that I don't know if I mentioned or not. And it is, I have the wrapped one with me right now, but I don't know if we talked about the Tonto.
ooh, we have not. Look at that.
And the Tonto's fun. If you are a hard tip user, the Tonto is for you, because you get a beefy flat ground tip on a very nice hollow ground bevel, super slicey. This thing is crazy sharp, wicked thick, wicked beefy tip, beautiful little swedge. This has just come out to a really nice compound grind on these. I'm very, very, very happy with the way this grind turns out.
Man alive, that is beautiful. I did not know whether that was, because I have come to think of it, I have seen it in the photographs, but I never really studied that transition from the main edge to the tip to see if it was curved or not. And I see it. I love a hollow ground.
Yes. So it is hollow ground, and there is a slight curve on the tip as well. I don't like a fully flat tip. You'll see it's got a very subtle curve to it. Yeah. But yes, fully hollowed. It's a 12-inch hollow ground on the wheel, and then fully flat tip. It adds for a really, really nice compound grind knife. If you guys are American Tonto fans, this will be the one for you. I know, I prefer Japanese style Tonto. I don't love this hard point here, but I'm a man of the people, so I build the knives for you guys, not for me.
Man of the people. And the wrap is very apropos on that blade. Which do you like doing better? I would imagine G10 is easier or less time consuming, but then again, on this one, you were doing, this sort of compound or numerous, or what, like 2 layers of G10. I think you also had a white and gray on the first run. That has to present its own problems. But tell me about the difference between making the handles and what you like more, and why you offer two that are so very different.
Well, one, I cannot wrap enough knives because I have tennis elbows, so that sucks.
Oh.
So working through that, it is what it is. But in reality, not everybody likes to wrap. Not everybody likes the G10. It's kind of a bit of something for everybody. The G10 is great. It's attractive. The facets on here, the rock pattern look great. It makes a ton of dust. It keeps me in the shop longer. The nice thing about the wraps is that I get to do them at home. I can watch a movie instead of my couch while I wrap the knives. And really, they are my homework. So in the daytime at the shop, I'll be working on G10. Then I come home, throw a movie on, before and after dinner, and work on some reps. And it really helps me break up the work. And hopefully I'll have an employee and some shop help, and I can really expand fully on both and have a lot more of both ready all the time. And honestly, for me, it just came kind of out of necessity. Some folks wanting the G10, some folks wanting the wrap. And to be truthful with you guys, some folks absolutely hate the wrap. I cannot tell you how many people have been like, "Oh, this is such a cool knife," but like, what is this? Is this a prison shank? Why is this on here? They don't understand it. Maybe they've never seen a Japanese knife. Maybe, I don't exactly know what the deal is, but people have been just dumbfounded time and time again by the wrap. And what? It doesn't seem so crazy to me, but what do I know?
That's funny. I am a huge fan of the wrap. I love jute cord wrap. I love all sorts of. The only thing I don't like is paracord. Kind of the first wraps we ever saw on modern tactical knives. I'm not a big fan of that, but I love that. And one of the reasons you asked me very generously which handle type I wanted, and I jumped on the wrap because I think they're beautiful, and that is a huge part to me, how something looks. But they feel great in hand, and they offer such amazing grip. This kind of Tsukamaki or Japanese style wrap offers such amazing grip that people might not realize until they hold it in their hands. That those alternating little peaks and valleys, and then feeling the texture of the ray skin through it. I mean, there's a reason why Samurai did that. It wasn't just to look cool, but also I intend to carry the XL Bowie. Are you calling it the XL Pocket Bowie or just the XL?
I was calling it the Pocket Bowie XL. Yeah,
the Pocket Bowie XL. I intend to carry it in my waistband, and the thinner the better. Yeah, the thinner the better. You know what I mean? Up against my skin like that. So I'm looking forward to that on a bunch of different levels.
Yeah, and what you mentioned, the how it's very grippy, and in theory, it actually very closely mimics the way that this texture works. It's got its peaks and valleys, it's got its highs and lows, its places to grip. While this is bead blasted for extra texture, the physical texture on this cordage that has been impregnated with resin offers kind of that same bead blasted feel. So they are both extremely, extremely grippy on that front.
So we've talked a lot about blades. We've talked a lot about the handles. But I want to mention this knife.
Yes.
And I keep forgetting what it's called because I called it the Pocket Rocket. That's someone else's knife.
No, that's my knife too. I have the Pocket Rocket and the Bottle Rocket. You are holding the Bottle Rocket.
This is the Bottle Rocket. Yes. Ever since I bought this knife, I talk ad nauseum about it when I talk about it on the show for its incredible grip. I love the octagonal cross section of this. Ooh, is that the
Pocket Rocket?
The Pocket Rocket. That is sweet. Yeah, I might have to get one of those too. But
I will say,
this
exciting times. Oh yeah,
just the way, no matter how you grab it, it might be at a 45-degree angle accidentally. It might be flat across your hand. It might be in a perfect grip. No matter how you grab this knife, forward or reverse, your fingers land in one of these swales here, and it just feels so good. I love this handle design. Was this something that you just stumbled upon, or because this doesn't seem like it would be the same if it were wrapped, for instance?
I did a few wrapped. It takes away a lot of the aesthetic and a lot of the feel, in my opinion. There's maybe 20 wrapped ones floating around, handmade, and there's probably 500 or so of those. Bottle rockets, I got quite a few in my drawer here. But I'll hold one up too, just so we can all take a look at them.
Yeah.
And so these, I actually do not make these anymore.
Oh,
yes. Fun story. They will be available, but not handmade by me. I have licensed this design, so you will see it coming out with a major manufacturer next year. Going to be readily available, budget friendly, very exciting stuff. I can't say who yet, but everybody likes this company. They are one of the best out, so I'm very excited about it.
wow. Congratulations. That's awesome. That'll be what Bob Terzuola calls mailbox money. Like
yes. And not the first mail. That is the first of a couple coming out. That is the one I can't talk about as much, but already available, guys. I have a folding knife out with shield on as well. The Rev folder. I believe it's available on Shieldon's website right now. They did a small Black Friday release, and then shortly it'll be on Amazon. Super
nice.
cool knife. Yeah. All-time handle, front flipper, very cool knife. I worked with the guys at DC Blades to help bring that into a folder life. And we showed it to Shieldon. They loved it. And it just kind of kickstarted into production. So I'm really happy to see it coming out.
That I gotta say, first of all, I ordered one because Justin Carvin of DC Blades, and he works with the gentleman from Old Squirrel Knives, and I can't remember his name. Chris. He just posted that on his Instagram, and I've always had my eye on that Rev, and it looks beautiful. It's one of the few cases where the Ultim is just it looks perfect with the black blade. It reminds me of an auxiliary manufacturing knife. Maybe the Carl or something, but it's a straight bladed Pikal that you could very, very just easily use as a regular EDC all day long. But there's a slight, a subtle curve to the back of the handle that makes you want to hold it in reverse grip if need be. That is a gorgeous knife. Very cool. And
fun fact, I do make a Rev fixed blade, although they are far and few between at times. And of course, it is called the Rev because it's a reverse built knife. Most people don't actually know this part. If you flipped the Rev over, it would be the blank of my model called the KTK, the Quaken type knife. And so, I just made one backwards. I was like, I'll just call it the Rev, whatever. And it has become pretty popular. I don't make a ton of them, kind of a specialty thing. And we may see a fixed blade version coming out, licensed as well. I'm really working hard at these blade shows, man. Really poking the bear with all these bigger companies.
Oh yeah, gotta poke the bear. Oh, I mean, your table, and your wife is awesome too. Your table, you go up to your table, and you have a beautiful setup. You have the amazing knives, and you do a really great job of pressing the flesh and working the crowd, and that is totally essential. I mean, we talk about that a lot here. You can't just go and show your stuff and expect it to sell itself. Yeah.
I mean, I see people every year, frumpy faced at their table on day 2 because they didn't make a single sale on day 1. And I'm like, what's up, man? How you doing? How's it going? Oh, blah, blah, blah. And look, what can I say? I can't tell them, smile and maybe you'll sell a knife, be a nice guy, tell a joke, and people want to hang out on your table, but it goes a long way, have fun, make jokes, drink a little whiskey, maybe. Yes. Yeah. Every time. I almost never sit down. You'll see me all day long. I would be, as soon as you walk up to my table, if you look at any of my knives, I'm immediately going to greet you and tell you to pick up anything you want. And then as soon as you do, I will dive right into my spiel, telling you all the little fun facts, little tidbits, cracking a joke here and there, saying something probably that sounds stupid. It's very humanizing to be stupid. Trust me, guys. It's so weird. But it works great. Just be yourself, talk to people, tell people what your goals are. Be like, man, this knife would look so cool on your belt. Ask them what they're looking for. Ask them what they're into. Ask them why they're at the show. Just talk, meet people, make sure that when they come next year, they remember talking to you the year before. Yeah. Building a rapport with people goes so far because they will be excited to see you again.
And even if they don't buy a knife, you can get really valuable intel that way. You know, someone might just be like, I like this guy.
100%.
I can't stand his knives, but I like this dude. And you could you could probably learn a lot from those people too, you know, the ones who love what you're doing and those who maybe don't. But the fact that they're there talking with you, you can extract a lot of valuable information. Whether or not you're going to use it, like or not, you could still still be right there. Um, tell us a little bit about, we've talked about this before on previous shows, but just to kind of, if people haven't listened to those shows yet, which they should definitely go back and do, but give us just a quick and dirty of your process, because, and I want to preface this by saying, I know about it, but it's kind of, I know machines aren't making these, but your stuff is so consistent. Tell us how you make them.
So the knives are fully handmade. The only thing I truly outsource is my water jet. I could not do what I'm doing without getting the water jet cut by the New Jersey Steel Baron. They do really great work for me. But aside from that, everything is done in shop. I do strive really hard to have consistency across all of my knives. I want every single one to look like the one before and the one after. For a few reasons. One, dealers like that, and I want dealers to sell my knives. If they can only take one picture, and for 100 knives, that's great. Same with Swedge Media. If I want them to do my product photography, it's a lot more valuable for me to pay for them to do, pictures of this knife, and then I always make this knife. And the dealers can use the photos. I can use the photos. Everybody else can use the photos.
I lost Michael for a quick moment. I'm sure he'll be right back up. There you go.
Oh God, sorry guys. I don't know what happened.
That's all right. We're talking across the country. But you were mentioning how consistency, not only for dealers, because they want to take one picture and know that it represents everything they're selling on their site. And also photography, you were saying as well.
I talk to guys like Swedge Media, and if I'm having them do my product photography, it's much more worthwhile for me to have them take, pictures of this knife, and then I continually offer this knife. It's going to cost a lot more money if I want to pay somebody else to do the product photography, to do a bunch of one-offs. And that's kind of where a guy like Sharp by Coop comes in, where if you're making a $5,000 knife, have him take the most beautiful photos of your one-off knife ever. That's certainly a great way to do it. But back to consistency, everything on my knives, if I can use a jig or a fixture or anything else to ensure that it's the same from every knife to every knife, when I'm doing something like 250 knives at a time, which is what I just completed in this last batch, using a jig, using my work rest, making sure, everything is how it should be, and consistency. And I'm marking all my grinds out in every single knife, my center lines where my swedges need to be, lining the work rests up properly. That really goes a long way in creating continuity from piece to piece and ensuring that there's going to be that consistency that I'm looking for. Because it, in my opinion, it really does go a long way. And for customers as well, which I hadn't really mentioned, but a guy gets a great knife from you, gets a second one, and if the knife is not great, he's unlikely to get a third one because it's going to be hit or miss.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned New Jersey Steel Baron, who's a industry leader for sure. What kind of steels do you make these out of?
I almost exclusively use AEBL in the shop. I have my heat treat recipe honed in so well. It performs incredibly. And I've shared this recipe with tons and tons of other makers, and I get nothing but great responses about it. It is so, I did not cook up this recipe. It was passed down to me, but it performs so well. It makes such a great steel. And I've used some other stuff. I do some high carbon, some 80 CRV2 from time to time, 52-100, various Damascuses. I've done some 3Vs. Of course, I like to use some Damasteels and some Damascus from Vegas Forge and stuff like that, getting in the stainless Damascus. But, it's hard to beat working with the New Jersey Steel Baron, because even if there are hiccups like there are from time to time with any small business, it's hard to beat the customer service that they offer. There's always someone there to answer the phone. you know, and it's a one-stop shop for steel and water jet cutting. You know, whereas if I wanted to use a local water jetter, I'd still have to order steel from somebody, get it shipped to them, probably freight shipped because it's a big old, you know, sheet of steel, and then go and pick it up. And, you know, the steel bearing has the sheets of steel that have the water jets that can cut it. They have the shipping capabilities. So, you know, maybe take 6 to 8 weeks from my order, and then I have all the blanks at my door ready to get reamed, ground, and heat treated.
Man. Yeah, that's a cool way to go, I gotta say. And absolutely, in my opinion, at least from speaking to a lot of knife makers, absolutely necessary. If you're a custom knife maker, a small knife maker, or a company starting out, and you want to be a regular business offering a regular selection of knives, or a regular supply of one knife, to have the consistency, have it water jetted. I have a feeling, and I don't hear this too much actually, but you know, I'm a purist about certain things like pizza and you know, certain other things, and I could see a purist knife maker saying, "No, I said this is handmade, so I have to cut out every." And some people love doing that, but seems to me that when you take the step to become more of a sustainable outfit, you have to do that. And to me, I almost not require it, but I want that, because I do want consistency, and I want to know that the knife I'm getting, the next knife I get from you, is going to look like all the other, you know, bottle rockets, for instance. Which leads me to this question: for auxiliary manufacturing, what do you like? What's your catalog? In other words, do you have all of your knives available all the time? I know that you have a couple that are licensed now that they're in someone else's hands now. But in terms of the ones that you make, how does that work? Do you do it in drops? Do you have a regular schedule?
I do it in drops, and to be truthful, it's forced to be based around the shows, because I have to prepare for the blade shows and the other big shows, and that takes a lot of effort, you know, to have 100+ knives for every show, which is what I like to take, and that takes a lot of preparation. So it does, you know, for me, drops, you know, I pepper them in throughout the year. I always have a big product release around December, like I do this year, like I did last year, because wrapping up after Blade Show West in October affords me a few months to just work on one thing, bring my new designs that I've been working on throughout the year to life, and finally launch those. But, you know, everything else, I do drops. I work with tons of dealers, international and domestic. You know, you can find my stuff with Blade HQ, PVK, Smoky Mountain Knife Works, Knife Ship Free. Going to be Knife Lounge soon. EDC Max, Mukama overseas, and a few more. They're all linked on my website if you guys are looking to shop with dealers. And of course, on my website, I like to do the drops and sell direct to customers as much as I can. But now I make a lot of knives, and, you know, this year I'm on track to have built 1,000 knives this year. It's
Nice.
hard for me to ship physically from my office 1,000 things. It takes a lot of time. And working with the dealers really just like lets them do the marketing. It lets them handle a lot of the shipping, so I can focus on making the more knives, which is where the water jet is important, you know, because then that is the first step into really upping your production as a knife maker. The first thing you can do to up your production is to move into water jet knives. And you did mention some purists. They certainly exist, you know, and the way I recognized what happened to me was I moved into water jet. I would never lie about my process. There's zero value in that. You know, it's best to be upfront as possible, because you always get caught in your lie and it just screws you over. I will say this. I moved into water jet very upfront about what I was doing. Maybe lost 2% of my customers who are die hard about like everything has to be done the hardest way possible. I want it hand sanded and hand shaped and freehand ground and this and that. Well, you know, that 2% I lost on, you know, the 200 knives I made a year pales in comparison to all the customers I gained, adding, you know, 800 units I can build additionally a year by streamlining my process and taking the harder parts out, you know? So every year I'll sit and I'll look at the way I make knives. I'll see where things get bottlenecked the most, and I'll figure out how to work my way around that. You know, if it's shaping the knives that takes too long, well, I'll start water jetting them. If it's heat treating the knives that takes too long, you know, either I buy another kiln or I outsource that. Well, outsourcing bit me in the ass, so I got another kiln. You know, either one way or the other, you'll always have to find a new way to grow. And there's always going to be somebody who's not happy about it, but there's 7 billion potential customers in the world. The one you lose could probably always be replaced by 2 more who are happy to find your product at a more affordable price because it took you less effort.
Yeah, and you know, like I mentioned, collectors are have their peccadillos, and you know that's totally acceptable to me. That there are people who are like, no, I kind of want it from the very start. Everything is, yeah, I get that, because collectors are kind of weird, and so
Absolutely.
so I totally get that. It's kind of no skin off your back, and I'm sure no hard feelings, but you know, it's onward and upward. You seem to be a pretty astute businessman. Where'd you get this from?
I mean, before I did this, I ran a multi-million-dollar 9-seat restaurant in Chicago for many, many years. It taught me tons and tons and tons of stuff about running a lucrative business. You know, between my director of operations, you know, who was my direct supervisor while I was the GM, and the owner who turned a tiny little bar into a huge monumental cornerstone of a restaurant for many, many
Wow.
years. It was really easy to just pick up stuff and read between the lines. And as long as you were willing to open your eyes and see what was really happening, you know, and want to learn, people want to teach you what they know. It's way, you know, I tell people all the time what I want to do, what I want to know. You know, I tell people these companies, I say, hey, I would love to see this knife in production, and I think it would do great for you. I sell a bunch of them. You could sell even more of them if they're lower cost. And then they'll be like, oh, well, I guess that is a good idea. You know, sometimes you just gotta say exactly what it is, what you want, and people will be like, oh, I can help with that and do this and do that. And whatever the case, it's always been really helpful for me to do that same exact thing.
Oh man, and working in the restaurant business and in Chicago, and
Oh yeah.
being forward, you know, facing the public, I'm sure that taught you a lot of lessons about, you know, selling. We were just talking Blade Show. I'm sure you learned a lot there. It is amazing.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
I've had a lot of BS jobs along the way, and I'm not calling that a BS job, but obviously that wasn't your calling. This is your calling. But it's amazing what you can learn from whatever you're doing. You know, I've worked pantry in restaurants. I've worked as a, you know, secretary. I've learned all sorts of skills doing BS jobs or jobs that aren't the final job, the job I want. And yeah, if you have the right attitude, you take that with you and build it into whatever you're building, you know. So
Absolutely. I mean, oh,
y- no, please. What were you
um,
gonna say?
I just wanted to say you're absolutely correct. Everything should and I mean everything could and should be a learning opportunity. You know, any experience, whether good or bad, you should certainly be taking something away from it and applying it to how you move forward.
Yeah. Well, I want to just go back over the coffin series drop because we're about to wrap here, but I want to leave people with this taste in their mouth. Uh, Tell us again about this series. Let's take one last look at the blades and maybe what you think who the customer is for each blade, if you will.
Oh, of course, of course. So let's start with the Pocket Bowie XL. Um, Certainly the biggest, baddest of the launch. Um, Coffin, very prominent, full 4-finger grip, very, very nice, long, slender Persian blade. This is going to be for the guy who already has all his user knives and just wants a big, badass, tactical, practical knife to add to his kit, maybe take out in the field with him, have a little fun. You know, I think this is going to be for your guy who wants you to see what kind of knife he's carrying. He's not for the concealed person. For the concealed person, maybe for the guy who carries a single stack 9mm as well, I think you're going to be a Pocket Bowie slim sort of fellow. You can put this guy in waistband or on waistband, or heck, even vertical scout style. Forget it's there until you absolutely need it. And this 1/8 inch steel with the wrapped version So thin, so low profile. Would even make an excellent boot knife with the addition of the right sheath for it. Or maybe even an Alta clip on its Kydex sheath and make it a great deep carry boot knife. If you are hard on your knife tips, if you are just the guy who has to just put your knife through a piece of metal, the Tonto is for you. Very forgiving tip. You're not going to break this one. Super slicey, hollow grind edge. Going to do all your cutting. Be really nice, really, really slicey. But again, the tip, it's a bruiser. If you don't treat your stuff well, this is the one for you, 100%. Because if you don't treat your stuff well, I also don't want it coming back for warranty work. We can all just be happier. Also, if you don't treat your stuff well, this guy's pretty beefy too. You'd probably be okay with this. If you're not looking for a self-defense blade and you want something that's a nice everyday carry knife, pair this up with a deep carry in-pocket sheath from Tailored by Cortez. They'll have Alta clips. They will also be on my website for the drop. Very, very nice work knife. Head's fully in pocket. You have this much exposure still sticking out of pocket. You know, it's not excellent for self-defense in that carry, but who needs self-defense when you have such a cool knife? People will be like, wow, that's cool, man. Where'd you get that? I can't even hurt you anymore.
Love it.
On to the probably most practical utilitarian. We'll talk the spear point here. Nice and thin with the wrapped blade or the wrapped handle. Spear point's going to give you a very, very nice puncturing blade, but a very nice slicer as well. Nice little swoop on the edge. If you're looking for an all-around user, this is going to be your guy. If you're indecisive, I would say buy this one. If you're indecisive and rich, just buy them all. I'll throw in something extra for you if you buy all 12 models. You don't get extra stuff for nothing. And lastly, the hardest worker in the bunch, the quintessential work knife, the Warncliffe 3/16 inch AEBL. Very, very nice textured bead blasted G10 handle. Again, chamfered and rounded at every hot spot. Nice deep tapering swedge to a full thickness tip. Going to give you a really, really nice work knife. Very nice package overall. All of the Coffin series knives hit my website, auxmfg.com at 4 p.m. Pacific on December 6th, this coming Friday. Christmas is coming. Tell all of your friends, your parents, your grandma, your wife, if you have one, your husband, if you got one, what you want. Link them from my website. Send them countless emails. Sign them up for my email list. I'll even email them personally to remind them when the knives go live.
Oh man. Okay. So this is why people say it's not just, you're not just buying a knife, you're buying the maker. And Michael, that was beautiful. I love it. We need to bottle some of this and get it out to everyone. 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, December the 6th. That's a Friday, 2024. If you're listening to this in the future, who knows?
Yes.
These might be licensed somewhere, or you might just be buying them from Michael again.
I will tell you guys right now, I am working hard on having a production version of the Pocket Bowie, self-funded, no licensing needed. We will hopefully have a budget version available next year around the $99 retail market.
Oh, man. Oh, that's a steal. Oh, that's awesome. Michael, thank you so much for coming out. Well, you were about to say something, and I cut you off. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say you will 100% have one in your mailbox when they get to me.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. And I will sing it from the mountaintops. Thank you so much again for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure talking with you. And, thanks to you and your wife for all the work and for contacting me about this. I'm so excited about this series. And beautifully done, sir.
We always appreciate the support. And thank you for having us. Next time I'll make Ann sit in too, and we'll both be here.
Awesome. All right. Take care, man.
Hey, you too. Have a great night.
Thanks.
Do you like the sound of the alphanumeric combinations M390, 204P, and 20CV, but bristle at 8CR, 13MOV, and AUS-8? You are a knife junkie. Probably worse.
There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Jarvis. He just got me so excited, so pumped for this Coffin series, more so than when we started this conversation. So definitely keep your eyes peeled. 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on December 6th, 2024. All right. Be sure to join us on Thursday for Thursday Night Knives. Also, another great interview on another Sunday. And, of course, the Wednesday midweek supplemental. For Jim, working his magic behind the switcher, I'm Bob DeMarco saying until next time, don't take dull for an answer.
Thanks for listening to the Knife Junkie podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review at reviewthepodcast.com. For show notes for today's episode, additional resources, and to listen to past episodes, visit our website, TheKnifeJunkie.com. You can also watch our latest videos on YouTube at TheKnifeJunkie.com/YouTube. Check out some great knife photos on TheKnifeJunkie.com/Instagram, and join our Facebook group at TheKnifeJunkie.com/Facebook. And if you have a question or comment, email them to bob@TheKnifeJunkie.com or call our 24/7 listener line at 724-466-4487, and you may hear your comment or question answered on an upcoming episode of the Knife Junkie podcast.